What's going on, everybody? I'm Jerry, and today I'm going to go over the top 10 trades that need to happen this NFL season. As you can see, I've got some new graphics here, new background, trying to have a new me. Haven't been happy with my graphics so far, so let me know what you think of all the images today, everything that I put together, and the brick backdrop is in honor of Greg Braggs from CHGO Sports, building his life brick by brick. I figured I would try to channel that same aura with the brick background. So here we go. Starting off, we have in the thumbnail, Kirk Cousins. I put the realistic fit as the Jets, just because there have been trade talks of Kirk Cousins possibly going to the Jets. I don't see how it's going to work because the first round pick that the Jets are going to get is compensatory. So I don't know what all that deal is. I'm sorry, not the trade that they're going to get, but the one that they gave up. So I don't think that pick can be traded until next year because the Packers are going to get a second. They're not getting a first, but because it's compensatory, they can't get rid of their first. So I don't know how they're going to do that. But that seems like what everybody wants to happen just because Rodgers went down. They think Kirk Cousins could save the day. I think that the Raiders and the Falcons are probably better options. The Falcons, where you have Ritter, who hasn't really done very well. It's not that he's utilized his legs very much in the offense so far either. So I think Kirk Cousins could fill that role, would be a more accurate quarterback, and would definitely help the Falcons moving forward with that strong running attack they have. Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. I think it would at least be a likable situation so you don't feel as bad about leaving the best receiver in the league, Justin Jefferson, and TJ Hawkinson, which I don't think Kirk would want to do, and he has a no-trade clause. So that's another reason I don't really see this happening, but there's been a lot of talk about it, so I had to put it in there. Likelihood, I put as low. Minimal's the lowest I go, but I put it as low because I don't see it happening. Giants I kind of just threw in there because it would kind of make sense. Maybe Dable would prefer to have him. Maybe Daniel Jones could learn something from him. Doesn't make sense with him just getting paid. That honestly really shouldn't be on the list. Just wanted to put a third one on there. Don't really think this is going to happen, but there's a lot of talk about it, so I think it's worth putting in there. And then, the Raiders. Same thing with the Raiders that I said with the Falcons. You have Devonte Adams, or do you? We'll see later in this video. And then you've got Michael Mayer, who, I don't know, maybe some upside. I don't know. I feel like those Falcons and the Raiders are the most likely to me. Realistic fit was put in there as the Jets just because of all the talk about it. Moving on is probably the hottest take of the video, Justin Fields. I have not seen one person, one place, anybody say this. People have said, this is, Justin Fields' last shot, just because of all the failures that have happened. But makes the most sense to me with, he's from Georgia. He, director of player personnel is Ryan Pace, who was the Bears GM when Fields was drafted. So we know that he likes him. And as I talked about with the last, with Kirk Cousins, Ritter hasn't really been getting it done as far as throwing the ball. I don't think Justin Fields would by any means be an upgrade in throwing the ball, at least with what we've seen. But his athleticism and ability with his feet to run the ball with his legs would just be amazing. I mean, you've got him and Bijan in the backfield at the same time would be unbelievable. People say, Justin Fields potentially could be one of the top 32 running backs in the league. I've heard it before. I don't know if anybody would agree, but to have him and Bijan would be nuts. Put other options as Rams kind of made sense to me for him to sit behind Stafford because we don't know what's going to happen with Stetson Bennett. They're going to need a quarterback moving forward when Stafford's done, so it would give Fields an opportunity to relocate, warmer weather like he wanted to, and get an opportunity there. Commanders doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but it's mainly just because Howell hasn't really worked out. It's very early on, but I feel like, if that team found out that, Justin Fields is available, maybe they'd go for him. And then I put the Vikings in there just because they're going to need something after Kirk Cousins. All the quarterbacks they've drafted, I guess, at least in their training camps and preseason, hasn't really shown much. Jaron Hall, Kellen Mond, I don't even think is in the NFL. He was maybe still Browns practice squad member, so not much there. I think Fields would generate a day 2 value, and if later in the season, if the Bears end up being like 0-6 or something, I definitely could see them trading him just because they're going to be in the Caleb Williams, Drake May sweepstakes at that point. Still put the likelihood at minimum because I literally haven't seen this anywhere. It just seems very likely to me that he could go to the Falcons, and I'd love to be the first one to say it. Just because of all of his ties to the Falcons. That's another thing with Kirk Cousins, though, is Kirk Cousins, I believe his wife is from Georgia, or there's some tie in their family to Georgia as well. So both of them definitely could be likely. Those are the only two quarterbacks. Let's move on to running back. We have Jonathan Taylor. Offseason was definitely looked at to be traded. A lot of people thought he was traded. Sounded like the Colts were asking too much. Deal didn't get done. Packers were the most likely when we were looking at it in the offseason, and just didn't seem to work out. I put the most realistic fit as the Panthers just because I think they could be looking to get better and younger. Chuba Hubbard hasn't really proved that he can be a great NFL running back. Miles Sanders isn't doing very well over there, so I think Jonathan Taylor might offer the explosiveness that they're looking for and would help Bryce Young a lot, because when you have a young quarterback like that, that the run game can be a huge success to help elevate that quarterback and get the run game going to set up the pass. So I really like that fit more than the Packers. They still have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Obviously, Aaron Jones has had the injury issues, and A.J. Dillon hasn't really been able to produce. But to me, it just makes more sense to go to the Panthers. And I think Ravens are another one where they'd probably want a running back that can play now. So that's why I kind of put them third there, just because we don't know what Jonathan Taylor is going to be. And I think if they wanted a running back, they'd want a little bit more sure running back. Gus Edwards, I believe, is still injured. And then Justice Hill has been filling in, but even he's been injured. So they need a lot of help over there in the running game. I think Jonathan Taylor could be. Again, I don't know if he's the best fit just because we still don't know what he's going to be when he comes back. And then the last one was Buccaneers, because they're 2-1 at this point, but I don't think that they're going to have a winning season. And I think they're going to be looking to get younger, and not that Jonathan Taylor would get them any younger, but it would be a huge positive over Rachaad White. So I think that would make sense there. The trade value, I put it a second round just because I think his value continues to go down as he doesn't play, because he's going to want a contract. Colts are probably going to want a 1, but if it comes to a point where maybe Zach Moss is doing good for them, and they're able to just work with that, they might take what they can get, and I think that would be a round 2 pick. Put the likelihood at medium just because there's been a lot of talk about it, and it's still probably one of the most likely trades that we've been talking about. And then moving on to another running back, we have Derrick Henry. Nobody's talking about Derrick Henry being traded either. I just thought this one kind of made sense, especially for the Ravens. I think that would be a perfect fit. Derrick Henry hasn't struggled with injuries that much. Obviously, he did last year, but he's kind of been off, and I think he could maybe use a new offense, just because the Titans' offensive line hasn't really looked good. Put the likelihood as low just because, again, I haven't heard much about it. I think he would generate a second round because of his age, his injury history, but his potential to dominate. Obviously, last week he had 11 carries for 20 yards and did not look, or maybe it was 12, 11 or 12 carries for 20 yards. Didn't really look very good. And I threw the Rams in there. Obviously, Kyron Williams been doing well, but I think Derrick Henry would fill in awesome over there as just a power back, short yardage. And Derrick Henry could probably do that and just be a short yardage back for another 4 or 5 years. So I think that would work with a Rams team that I think is doing a lot better than most people expected. I only expected them to win like 6-7 games. And at this point, it looks like they might win that in their first 10. And then but the Buccaneers, for the same reason as Jonathan Taylor, just run game hasn't been very strong. I don't know if they're going to be a winning team this year. I don't think they are. But I think it could help them. And then the Chiefs I just put because it would be crazy to have Patrick Mahomes with Derrick Henry in the backfield and Travis Kelce. That would just be bonkers to me. I don't really think that's going to happen, especially with contracts. But I thought that was an interesting other team to put on there. Next we have Devonte Adams. I have seen trade rumors. I've actually seen some for the Cowboys, but I have seen the Lions too. And I kind of liked, I kind of like the Lions a bit better, just because pairing him up with Amon-Ra would be great. You're kind of relieving stress off of Jameson Williams because he's coming back. But then I think about it, and they have Josh Reynolds who's been playing well. So I don't know if kind of talking myself out of it, as I should probably drink some water. Um, I think Cowboys, honestly, as I'm talking about it here, I think might be a better fit. You got CeeDee Lamb. It would be a great counterpart to CeeDee Lamb. Another target for Dak Prescott to attempt to throw the ball to. Kind of elevates them. But I guess I don't see Jerry Jones trading for Devonte Adams because I do think his value is going to be a first round, or it'd have to be like maybe a second and a third, or something along those lines. Browns makes sense because he'd be across from Amari Cooper, and give Deshaun Watson another target. And then the Patriots don't really have a true wide receiver one yet. It's kind of been bouncing around who Mac Jones is throwing it to, and he has been slinging it. So I think Devonte Adams could fill in very nicely, kind of like going way back to when, not quite the same, but Randy Moss. When Randy Moss came to the Patriots for Tom Brady and had an amazing year, Devonte Adams has been, we regarded him as the best receiver in the league a couple years. So to have him on that offense, Mac Jones hasn't been horrible. He just, he could be better, but I don't think he has the greatest receiver. So I think Devonte Adams would help that. Again, I think the likelihood on this one is low just because I haven't really seen too many rumors about it, and he's kind of a high ticket player. He just got there recently, last year? So we'll see. I think that's an interesting one to pay attention to. Other one is Mike Evans, who the Buccaneers have actually already said that they are not interested in trading him. I really just kept him on here because of the craziness of him going to the Chiefs too. Chiefs have had a lot of problems with their receivers and drops, and Patrick Mahomes has not been happy with that. So I think he would love to have somebody like Mike Evans to help elevate that team and make a Super Bowl run, because they haven't looked like the Super Bowl winning team so far. Obviously, they've done well so far this year. They just have the loss to the Lions by 1 point. But their receivers really haven't looked very good. Rashee Rice is, kind of been one of their better receivers. Justin Watson is doing all right, but it's just kind of all over the place. And I feel like they need that guy. Lions definitely make a lot less sense. I think I'd probably move them to the end after talking myself out of it on the last one. But they're there for the same reason that Devontae was. And then the other teams, honestly, all the other teams are there for the same reason. I think, the Buccaneers could, it doesn't sound like they want to, but I'm sure if they got offered the right thing, like maybe later in the season, maybe they hit a losing streak and they end up at 2-5 or something. I definitely could see them trying to offload Mike Evans just to generate picks, maybe a second and a fourth or second and a fifth or something next year, just to have more picks to help their future. Moving on, we have the defense. Brian Burns. I've seen a lot of rumors of him to the 49ers being interested, the 49ers being interested in him. So I wanted to include that on here. The Rams, who are also on there, actually offered 2 first-round picks to the Panthers last year in the offseason for Brian Burns. And that's why I put the value at 1, is because I don't think they get that anymore. I think the Panthers are kind of kicking themselves because he's not, I don't think the Panthers are going to be that good. They could be the worst team in the league this year. And then, what is he really doing over there? He could be valuable. So I think it would make sense to go to the 49ers. I think it makes sense to go to the Rams and be a counterpart to Aaron Donald, whereas he would be a counterpart on the 49ers to Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa. Bears, I think, makes sense just because their defensive line is the worst in the league. And they can't stop anything on defense, and they need help. And Brian Burns is really one of the only defensive linemen that is being talked about. You'll see another team that coming up here, another player that the Bears should be interested in. And I put the Cardinals too, just because they're looking kind of better than we anticipated, and they could use help on that defensive line. And it just kind of made sense to me. Low to medium, just because of the talking that I've heard about it. I don't know how true it is. I think the Panthers, they're probably kicking themselves for not getting those 2 firsts, but I think they would still possibly accept a first, or maybe it's a first and a fourth, or 2 seconds, or however it would work. I think they could still make a trade. And then another defensive lineman that was in a lot of trade talks in the offseason with the Commanders not picking up the 5th-year option, Chase Young. I could definitely see Chase Young being traded. At this point, he has the injury concerns. He had a phenomenal rookie season, and he was talked about going to the Bears. Like it seemed like living in the Chicagoland area that the Bears were getting Chase Young, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But I think he could still be dealt. They just paid Daron Payne, and it doesn't seem like they're going to move forward with him. So if they could get any value for him before his contract's up, it would only make sense for the Commanders to offload him. I don't think Chase Young would necessarily want to go to Chicago. Maybe he would, just to show his talents on a struggling defensive line right now. But I also put the Ravens. I saw the Ravens as a potential trade candidate. They want him because their defensive line hasn't been producing. Kind of the same thing with the Seahawks. Didn't see any rumors of him to the Seahawks, but it made sense. Their defensive line struggling. Kind of both for the Ravens and the Seahawks that have fairly young teams, at least their core, and or at least in their prime. Nobody's really that like super old, and could be looking to win this year or make a playoff run. So those make sense. Rams too, just kind of for the same reason as Brian Burns. I put the value as a 3rd round pick. I think that definitely could go up. Like if Chase Young comes back and has like a 2-sack or a 3-sack or a 2 and a 3 or something, I think his value could go up, maybe a 2nd. But right now, today, I think it's a 3rd just because of where he's at. And then the trade likelihood I put as medium just because of all the talk that there was about it. And I don't really see a reason for the Commanders to keep him because they don't look like they're going to be a Super Bowl team in the next 2 or 3 years. It looks like it's going to be a long run, so I don't really know what you're keeping him for, especially after you chose to pay Daron Payne and not him. So, again, I think the Bears are probably the most likely fit. Would love to see it just so we could have some sort of pass rush. Guess we don't know what he is yet with coming off an injury, but we'll have to see here. Pat Surtain, I saw a lot of potential trades for him to the 49ers as well. Going to be a lot of picks. It could even be 2. I put round 1 and a day 2. It might be 2 firsts to get him because the 49ers, they have plenty of money. They just restructured, so that's why you would think that one of these 2 players I listed between Burns and Surtain, I think could go there. And the 49ers seem like the best fit as they need to make a Super Bowl run. They don't have an amazing cornerback room, so it could use help, but their defense is really good everywhere else. So it would really just be bolstering that even more. But it makes sense to me. They're going to have Brock Purdy on that rookie contract, so they could pay him. Other options, I put Rams. These are all teams that, I guess Rams and Lions are both teams that are doing pretty good, and I think a cornerback could really help them. Rams cornerback room isn't great. Lions, I'll talk about in the next one. They had CJGJ go down, and then same with Brian Branch. As far as defensive backs, obviously they're safeties, but Cam Sutton's the one over there. If they had a better cornerback one, I think that would help with their defense, not allowing as many points, and we know their offense can score. And then the last one was just the Steelers. I don't necessarily know if they need it. That kind of just is the 3rd one there, and they don't really have a great cornerback room. I think that would help because it seems like their whole defense has just kind of been TJ Watt. And then as I was just talking about the next one, we got Budda Baker. I think the best fit for him is the Jaguars, just because although their defense actually hasn't looked too bad, their pass defense really hasn't been great so far this year, and it would be huge for them to have a guy like Budda Baker in the back. I think that makes the most sense. Packers is another good one. You pair him up with Darnell Savage, and they don't have Adrian Amos anymore, so I think that one makes a lot of sense. Eagles would be another place. If the Eagles do want to try to make that Super Bowl run, I think they're going to need to do something on defense because although they have had a good defense, it isn't as good as it was last year because of those missing pieces, losing CJGJ. So that's another one that makes sense. And for the same reasons that I just talked about Pat Surtain to the Lions, you can make that argument for Budda Baker with having both of your starting safeties are out, being injured. You're going to need to figure that out and bolster that room if you want to make any sort of a playoff run, as people think the Lions are going to win the North. And I've heard a lot of talks about it, so I put the likelihood at a medium. And I think he's probably a day 2, maybe probably a 2nd, maybe a 3rd. Maybe he's lost a little bit of value this year. So I think probably somewhere between 2nd and 3rd round is what his value would be. And I think any of these teams would be willing to give that up for a playmaker like Budda Baker. So that's the last one. The only other one that I was thinking about putting on here was Josh Jacobs. I had to put 10 in here, so left him off the top 10. Josh Jacobs would be a good honorable mention. There's going to be some other players, I'm sure, coming up closer to the trade deadline that we think could be moving forward. There could be a trade. So, yeah, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day.